Okay, here's the rounding standard form and bound solutions. We're asked to write 629,000 in standard form. We're going to start off by writing 6.29 because that's what the beginning of the number must look like. We're going to be timesing by 10 to the power of something to make it bigger. And that decimal point, which we've put over here between the 6 and the 2, has to jump over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So that's timesing by 10 5 times. So in standard form, it's 6.29 times 10 to the power of 5. 8.21 times 10 to the minus 3 as an ordinary number. Well, I'm going to start off by sticking some zeros in front of my 8.21. That 10 to the minus 3 is going to move the decimal point in the direction of the minus numbers. It's going to move it to the left. It's going to jump over the 8 and the next two zeros because it's got 3 jumps it's got to make. So it would end up here. My answer is going to be 0.00821. I want to write 0.07164 correct to two significant figures. Significant figures start as soon as we've run out of zeros at the beginning, so I don't count the first two zeros as significant. I start counting significant figures on the 7, so the two significant figures are the 7 and the 1. However, I do need to look at the 6, and the 6 would tell me to round up the 1. So my answer is going to be 0.072, and that's that number written to two significant figures. I'm now asked to write 0.0605 in standard form. The first thing I want to do is write 6.05 because the first part of the number must always be a single digit and then whatever happens next goes after the decimal point. Now in order to make that happen, the decimal point would have to go over the 0 and the 6 to arrive here. I'm timesing by 10 to the power of something. Well, in fact, I'm actually dividing by 10 twice. And in standard form, we say this by saying times by 10 to the power of minus 2. So there's my answer. I'm now asked to calculate 0.1 times 5.1 times 10 to the 4, given my answer in standard form. Now, one of the most straightforward ways to do this is simply to type this straight into your calculator as it appears on the page. Now, if I do that, I'll tell you what I get. I get 5,100. So this thing is equal to 5,100, and now I can simply convert this to standard form. I'm going to write the first part of the number, 5.1, because I know that's where the decimal point would have to go. And I think in order for the decimal point to get to there, it would have to jump over 3 digits. I would have to times by 10 3 times to turn 5.1 into 5,100. So there's my answer. Now I have another rounding question. I'm asked to write 5,367 correct to the nearest hundred. So if we're saying correct to the nearest hundred, then our number line only has hundreds on it as the smallest unit. I would have something like 5,000, then I'd have 5,100, 5,200, and so on and so on. So we've got to ask ourselves, what hundred on this number line are we closest to? 5,367 is closest to 5,400. So there's our answer. I want to write 42.3478 correct to 3 decimal places. So I start looking at numbers after the decimal point, 3, 4, and 7. There's my 3 decimal places. The 8 I have to look at over here, and I can see that would round my 7 up. This is going to be 42.348 to 3 decimal places. Now, a plane flies the 2,100 kilometers from Quito to Manaus at an average speed of 550 kilometers per hour. Because this is a question involving units, I'm being careful. I'm looking at these units carefully and seeing if they're the same or if I have to do a conversion. They are, of course, the same at this point. I want to work out the time taken for the flight. So, I know that speed equals distance over time. That's the formula I would use to work with this question. If I substitute in the values they've given me, I've got a speed of 550, the distance being travelled is 2,100, and I want the time, which I don't know. There are no simple jobs I can do here, so I go straight to solving the equation. And like all equation solving, if there's a fraction, I want to get rid of it by multiplying by the denominator. Divide by t and times by t are cancelling out over here, and on the other side I get 550t, and that's equal to 2,100. To solve the equation, I can divide both sides by 550. And t equals 2,100 divided by 550. Now if you're used to using a different method of speed, distance, time, if for instance you use a formula triangle, that's absolutely fine. Now my calculator, I have to read very carefully at this point. My calculator is saying 3.81, but there's a dot on top of both the 8 and the 1. If I press the conversion key again, it will tell me, as I should already know, that this represents 3.818181 forever. This is of course in hours because my speed was given in kilometers per hour, and I'm asked to give my answer to 3 significant figures. That's why it's so very important to watch out for these little recurring dots, because it's going to change my answer. If I think the answer is just 3.81, I'll write that down, but I'll be wrong. To 3 significant figures, there's my first, there's my second, there's my third, but I do look at this next figure, and I realise I have to round that 1 up to a 2. So my time is 3.82 hours to 3 significant figures. Now to give this time in hours and minutes, correct to the nearest minute, I'm going to times by 60. I've obviously got 3 hours, I'm going to leave that alone. 0.82 hours. If I times that by 60, I'm going to get the minutes. So 0.82 times 60 gets me 49.2 minutes. So I'm saying 3 hours and 49 minutes, correct to the nearest minute. I'm going to leave off that 0.2. Now there is another way to do this on the Casio calculator, which I'll mention as well. If I ask my calculator for 3.82 hours, and I want to convert it to time, then there's a key which does this. It's a key which looks like this. It's got a circle, and then it's got some commas on it. That's the time key. So 3.82 gets typed into my calculator, and if I press the time key, it'll give me the answer straight away. So here's the buttons which you press. 3.82 equals, and then you press this key over here, and your calculator will come up with 3 with a little circle, 49 with a little comma, and 12 with 2 commas. It's telling you that 3.82 hours is equal to 3 hours, 49 minutes, and 12 seconds. And of course we are asking for an answer to the nearest minute, so we're going to ignore the 12 seconds, and there it is. This is well worth remembering whenever you have to convert time from hours to hours and minutes or something like that. I'm asked now to write 18.766 correct to 1 decimal place. Very straightforward. This is 18.8. The 6 after the 7 rounds it up. To 2 significant figures, the decimal point doesn't matter at all. The first 2 significant figures are the 1 and the 8. And now I'm looking at the 7, which will round the 8 up to a 9, so to 2 significant figures, it's 19. The distance from the Sun to the Earth is 149.6 million kilometers. And we want to write this in standard form. Now, million can be thought of as timesing by 10 6 times. So this number is 149.6 times 10 to the power of 6. Now I actually want to write it in the form 1.496 times 10 to the something, and so I would have to multiply by 10 another 2 times to move that decimal point over the 9 and over the 4. So instead of multiplying by 10 6 times, I'd have to multiply by 10 8 times. Now you can also do this on the calculator. You can go 149.6 times 10 to the power of 6, and it will give you an answer. So if I just put this straight into the calculator, I would get 1496, and then I would get 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I can simply convert this number to standard form, writing it as 1.496, and saying that would have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers to get to position, and that's how I get my power of 8. Either way is fine, and I'll do the rest of the solutions in the next video.